The small office felt like it was closing in on her. 8-year-old Lily sat on the hard plastic chair, her feet dangling above the floor, not quite reaching the ground. Her hands were balled into tight fists in her lap, and she kept her eyes fixed on a crack in the tile floor, tracing its pattern over and over again. Mrs. Patterson, the social worker, sat across from her with a thick manila folder spread open on the desk. The woman's voice was gentle but tired, like she'd had this conversation too many times before. She was explaining something about behavioral issues and difficulty adjusting and running out of placement options. Lily heard the words, but they seemed to float past her, not quite landing. This was her third foster home in 2 years. The first family said she was too quiet, too withdrawn. The second family said she was too difficult, too angry. This last family, the Johnsons, well, they didn't say much at all after she'd locked herself in the bathroom for 6 hours and refused to come out. She hadn't meant to cause trouble. She just needed space, needed to breathe, needed to feel like she had control over something, anything, in her life. Mrs. Patterson pulled out a map and pointed to a spot that seemed very far from the city grid Lily knew. Montana. The word felt strange in her mouth when she tried to say it silently. It might as well have been another planet. "You have a distant relative there," Mrs. Patterson explained, her finger tapping on the map. "Your grandmother's sister's grandson. His name is Jack and he runs a cattle ranch. It's a big property, lots of open space, fresh air. The county thinks a change of environment might be good for you." Lily finally looked up. Her dark eyes were guarded, suspicious. She'd learned not to get her hopes up about anything. "Does he want me there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Patterson hesitated just for a second, but Lily caught it. "He's agreed to take you in. He's family, honey, even if you've never met him." Family. The word felt hollow. Her real family was gone, scattered to the wind or just plain gone. Her mother had left when she was 5. Her father, well, nobody talked about him much. Her grandmother had raised her until she got sick and passed away 2 years ago. That's when Lily entered the system, bouncing from home to home like a pinball nobody wanted to catch. The drive to the bus station was quiet. Mrs. Patterson tried making small talk, asking about school and if Lily had packed her favorite things. Lily just nodded or shook her head, not trusting her voice. She had one duffel bag with everything she owned. Some clothes, a stuffed rabbit her grandmother had given her that was missing one eye, a few books from the library she kept meaning to return, and a photograph of her grandmother smiling at the camera. The bus ride was long. Endless, really. Lily watched as the city slowly disappeared, the tall buildings getting smaller and smaller until they vanished completely. Then came the suburbs with their neat rows of houses and trimmed lawns. Then just highway and rest stops and more highway. The landscape changed from concrete to farmland, from flat to rolling hills, from crowded to empty. Other passengers got on and off. A tired mother with 2 young kids who wouldn't stop crying. An old man who snored loudly in the back. A teenage boy with headphones who never looked up from his phone. Nobody paid attention to the small girl in the window seat clutching a worn duffel bag. Lily pressed her forehead against the cold glass and watched the world blur by. The sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and pinks she'd never seen in the city. The buildings were completely gone now, replaced by fields that stretched on forever. Mountains in the distance that looked like they touched the clouds. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. It was also terrifying. So much space, so much emptiness, so much nothing. She thought about running when they stopped for a break. Just disappearing into the crowd at the rest stop and figuring things out on her own. But where would she go? She was 8 years old with $23 in her pocket and no plan. So she got back on the bus and kept going. As darkness fell, Lily felt sleep tugging at her, but she fought it. She didn't want to close her eyes, didn't want to wake up and find out this was real. Maybe if she stayed awake, she could somehow stop time, keep herself suspended in this in-between place where she wasn't anywhere yet. But exhaustion won. Her eyes drooped closed, her head resting against the window, and she drifted off to the rhythm of the bus engine and the occasional bump in the road. When Mrs. Patterson gently shook her awake, they were at a small bus station that looked nothing like the big terminal they'd left from. This one was just a wooden building with a bench outside and a parking lot with maybe 5 cars in it. The air smelled different here, cleaner somehow with a hint of pine and earth. "This is it," Mrs. Patterson said, helping Lily gather her things. Jack said he'd meet us here. Lily stepped off the bus onto the cracked pavement and looked around. The town, if you could even call it that, was tiny. A gas station, a diner, a post office, and not much else. The mountains she'd seen from the highway looked closer now, massive and imposing against the darkening sky. Then she saw the truck. It was huge, dusty, and looked like it had been through a few decades of hard work. And standing next to it was a man who seemed to match the truck perfectly. He was the biggest person Lily had ever seen in real life. Tall, incredibly tall, with broad shoulders and arms that looked strong enough to lift the truck if he wanted to. He wore faded jeans, work boots, and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His face was weathered, lined with years of sun and wind, and his beard was streaked with gray. But it was his eyes that Lily noticed most. They were blue, pale blue like the sky, and when they landed on her, she felt like he could see right through her. She wanted to hide behind Mrs. Patterson. She wanted to run back onto the bus. She wanted to be anywhere but here, standing in this parking lot about to be handed off to a stranger who looked like he belonged in a story about giants and mountains. Jack didn't smile. He didn't wave or come forward with open arms like adults sometimes did when they were trying too hard. He just gave a single nod to Mrs. Patterson, walked over, picked up Lily's duffel bag like it weighed absolutely nothing, and tossed it into the back of the truck. Mrs. Patterson knelt down to Lily's level, giving her that sad smile adults used when they felt sorry for you. "You be good, okay? Jack's phone number is in your bag if you need anything. I'll check in on you soon." Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She climbed into the passenger seat of the truck, which was so high up she had to use the handle to pull herself in. The seat was cracked leather, worn smooth in places, and the cab smelled like coffee and something earthy she couldn't identify. Jack got in, started the engine with a rumble that vibrated through the whole truck, and pulled out of the parking lot. They drove down a 2-lane highway as the last light faded from the sky, heading toward those massive mountains. Neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, uncomfortable, like a weight pressing down on Lily's chest. After what felt like forever, they turned onto a dirt road. The truck bounced and jostled over ruts and rocks, kicking up dust that glowed in the headlights. Lily gripped the door handle, watching as they drove past fences and fields and shapes she thought might be cows in the darkness. Finally, lights appeared in the distance. A house, big and sturdy-looking, with a wraparound porch and smoke coming from the chimney. Behind it were several barns and outbuildings, all dark and quiet. Jack parked the truck, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment. Then he got out, grabbed Lily's bag, and walked toward the house without looking back to see if she was following. Lily scrambled out of the truck and hurried after him, her shoes crunching on the gravel. Inside, the house was warm, heated by a wood stove in the corner of the main room. The furniture was simple but solid. Everything looked old but well cared for, like it had been there for generations. Jack set her bag down at the bottom of a staircase and pointed up. "Second door on the right. That's your room. Bathroom's next to it." Lily looked up the stairs, then back at him. He stood there, this giant of a man, waiting. His face was hard to read. Not mean exactly, but not friendly either. Just neutral, like she was a puzzle he hadn't decided whether to solve yet. "Supper's at 6, he said, his voice deep and rough from years of not using it much. "Don't be late." Then he walked away, his heavy boots echoing on the wooden floors, and disappeared through a doorway into what looked like a kitchen. Lily stood there alone in the main room, holding her breath, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of this place. A clock ticking somewhere, the crackle of the wood stove, wind whistling around the corners of the house, the faint sound of animals from the barns outside. She picked up her duffel bag, climbed the stairs slowly, and found her room. It was small but clean, with a single bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a wooden dresser with a mirror, and a window that looked out over the dark fields. Lily set her bag on the bed and sat down beside it. The mattress was firm, the quilt soft under her fingers. She looked around at this strange new room in this strange new place with this strange giant man downstairs, and she felt more alone than she ever had in her entire life. This was punishment, she thought. This was what happened when you couldn't fit in, couldn't be what people wanted you to be. They sent you away to the middle of no. Morning came too soon. Lily woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the sound of a rooster crowing somewhere outside. For a confused moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back and her stomach tightened into a familiar knot. She stayed in bed as long as she dared, listening to the sounds of the house, floorboards creaking, a door opening and closing, the distant clatter of dishes, and then silence, which was somehow worse than noise. Finally, hunger and the need to use the bathroom forced her out of bed. She crept down the hallway, found the bathroom, and splashed cold water on her face. The girl staring back at her in the mirror looked small and scared, with dark circles under her eyes from not sleeping well. When she made her way downstairs, the house was empty. There was a note on the kitchen table in handwriting that looked like it belonged to someone who didn't write much. Cereal in the cabinet. Milk in the fridge. Stay inside today. Lily ate her cereal standing up, looking out the kitchen window at the world she'd only seen in darkness last night. It was overwhelming. The property stretched on forever, with rolling pastures dotted with cattle, wooden fences crisscrossing the landscape, and mountains rising up in the distance like ancient guardians. The sky was bigger than she'd ever imagined possible, a blue so bright it almost hurt to look at. She spotted Jack outside one of the barns, even from a distance his size making him easy to identify. He was working with something, his movements efficient and practiced. He didn't look toward the house once the day crawled by. Lily explored the downstairs cautiously, treating everything like it might break or bite. The main room had a worn leather couch, that wood stove, and shelves filled with books about ranching and weather patterns and cattle breeds. There were no toys, no television she could find, nothing that suggested a kid had ever lived here. On the mantel above the stove, she found a photograph. A woman with kind eyes and blonde hair stood next to Jack, who looked younger and somehow less weathered in the picture. He was actually smiling, his arm around the woman's shoulders, and in front of them was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin, holding a ribbon from what looked like a county fair. Lily stared at the photo for a long time, wondering who they were and where they'd gone. The house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for those people to come back. She understood that feeling, that sense of waiting for something that was never going to happen. At exactly 6 o'clock, she heard the front door open, heavy boots on the porch stomping off dust. Jack came in, his shirt stained with sweat and dirt, his face tired. He glanced at Lily, then moved past her into the kitchen. "You eat?" he called out. "Yes," Lily said quietly, staying in the doorway. "Good." He pulled things from the refrigerator and started cooking. Lily watched from a safe distance as he moved around the kitchen with surprising efficiency for someone so large. He made eggs and toast and fried up some bacon, all without saying another word. When he was done, he set 2 plates on the small kitchen table and sat down. He looked at Lily, still standing in the doorway, and gestured to the empty chair. "Food's getting cold." She sat carefully, like the chair might collapse under her. They ate in silence, the only sounds being the scrape of forks on plates and the ticking of that clock she'd heard last night. Jack ate like someone used to eating alone, focused and methodical. When he finished, he stood up, rinsed his plate in the sink, and turned to face her. In the kitchen light, she could see him more clearly. His face was deeply tanned, with lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun. His hands were huge and calloused, with old scars across the knuckles. Everything about him was solid, permanent, like the mountains outside. "Rules," he said, not unkindly but not gently either. "Wake up is 5:30. Breakfast at 6. School bus comes at 7:15 when school's in session. Chores before breakfast, chores after school. Supper at 6. Lights out at 9. Weekends, more chores." Lily nodded, her throat tight. "You'll have jobs to do. Nothing you can't handle. Feeding chickens, collecting eggs, keeping your room clean, helping in the garden when it's season. You do your jobs, we won't have problems." "Okay," Lily managed to whisper. Jack studied her for a moment, his pale blue eyes unreadable. "I'm not good at this," he said finally. "Kids talking, any of it. But you're here now, and that means you follow the rules and do your work. That's how things run on a ranch. Everyone pulls their weight." "I understand." "Good." He grabbed his hat from a hook by the door. "I've got evening checks to do. You stay inside. Don't touch anything you don't know how to use. Don't go near the horses or cattle. Don't wander off. This isn't the city. Things out here can hurt you if you're not careful." Then he was gone, the screen door slapping shut behind him, leaving Lily alone in the big house with her half-eaten dinner and a head full of rules she was terrified of breaking. The next few days fell into a rhythm, though calling it comfortable would be a lie. Jack woke her at 5:30 by banging on her door once. No gentle wake-up calls, no gradually getting used to the schedule. Just one knock and the expectation that she'd get up and be ready. Her first assigned chore was the chickens. Jack walked her to the coop behind the house that first morning, showed her where the feed was kept, demonstrated how to scatter it so the birds didn't mob her, and pointed to the nesting boxes where she'd collect eggs. "They're just chickens," he said when he saw her nervous expression. "They're more afraid of you than you are of them." That turned out to be a lie. The chickens were loud and chaotic and seemed to have no fear whatsoever. They squawked and flapped and pecked at her shoes while she scattered their feed with shaking hands. Collecting the eggs was even worse. She had to reach into the nesting boxes where the hens sat, and more than once a bird pecked at her fingers, making her jump back with a yelp. But Jack didn't accept excuses or failures. If she didn't collect the eggs, he'd send her back out to do it. If she didn't latch the coop properly, he'd make her go check it again. His standards were high, his patience for mistakes low, but he never yelled. He just expected better, and somehow that was worse than yelling. School was a relief. The bus ride was long, winding through rural roads, picking up other ranch kids who all seemed to know each other. Lily sat alone in the front, invisible as always. The school was small, with maybe 150 kids total, and she was placed in the third-grade class with a teacher named Mrs. Chen, who had kind eyes but didn't push when Lily didn't want to talk. At recess, Lily sat under a tree with a book and watched the other kids play. A few tried to talk to her, curious about the new girl, but she gave short answers until they wandered away. It was easier that way. Easier not to try, not to hope, not to risk caring about people who would eventually leave or send her away. After school, there were more chores. Sweeping the porch, which collected dust and leaves like it was trying to build a mountain, helping bring firewood from the pile near the shed to the box beside the stove, setting the table for supper, washing dishes after they ate. Jack worked from before dawn until after dark. She'd see him out in the fields on horseback or fixing fences or working in the barns. He moved with purpose, never wasting motion, never stopping to rest. At meals, he'd ask if she'd done her chores and homework. She'd say yes. That was usually the extent of their conversation. But Lily noticed things. She noticed that Jack always made sure there was food she'd eat, not just what he wanted. She noticed he fixed the loose board on the porch steps after she'd tripped on it. She noticed he left the porch light on until she was inside at night. She also noticed the photograph on the mantel, and how Jack never looked at it but never moved it either. She noticed how sometimes late at night she'd hear him moving around downstairs, his footsteps slow and heavy. She noticed the careful way he maintained everything, like he was keeping the place ready for people who were never coming back. 1 week turned into 2. Lily learned the routine, learned to move through the day without causing trouble, learned to be invisible in this new place just like she'd been invisible in all the others. She waited for Jack to get tired of her, to call Mrs. Patterson and say it wasn't working out. She waited for the other shoe to drop. What she didn't expect was to start noticing the beauty of the place, the way the sunrise painted the mountains gold, the sound of wind moving through the grass like waves on an ocean, the smell of hay and earth and pine, the absolute silence at night, broken only by coyotes calling to each other in the distance. She didn't expect to feel a tiny bit of pride when she collected all the eggs without getting pecked. She didn't expect to feel less scared when she saw Jack's truck coming up the road at the end of the day, and she definitely didn't expect what happened on the Sunday morning that changed everything. Jack had told her they'd be working in the south pasture, checking on the cattle and repairing some fence. Lily followed him at a distance, watching as he moved among the huge animals with ease, checking them over with practiced efficiency. Then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold, a rattle, sharp and unmistakable, coming from near her feet. She froze. On the ground, coiled and ready to strike, was a snake. Its rattling tail vibrated in warning, its head raised, eyes fixed on her. A month passed, then 6 weeks. Lily fell into the rhythm of ranch life like a stone dropping into a pond, creating ripples but eventually settling. The routine became her anchor in a way she hadn't expected. Wake at 5:30. Feed the chickens. Collect eggs, breakfast, school, chores, homework, supper, bed, repeat. Jack ran everything like clockwork. There was a time for everything, and everything had its time. Fences got checked on Tuesdays and Fridays. The barn got cleaned on Saturdays. Tools were put away exactly where they belonged. Nothing was left to chance, nothing was sloppy or halfway done. At first, Lily found it suffocating. But slowly she began to understand. The structure wasn't meant to control her. It was meant to keep things from falling apart. On a ranch this size, with animals depending on you, crops needing attention, and equipment that could be dangerous if not maintained, discipline wasn't optional. It was survival. She learned to read Jack's moods, which didn't vary much but had subtle tells. When he rubbed the back of his neck, he was worried about something, usually weather or sick cattle. When he was extra quiet at breakfast, he was planning his day, running through all the tasks in his head. When he stood on the porch at sunset with his coffee, staring at the mountains, he was remembering something he wouldn't talk about. He taught her things without making them feel like lessons. How to tell if an egg was fresh by putting it in water. How to stack firewood so it would dry properly and not topple over. How to walk around the barn without spooking the barn cats who kept the mice population down. How to listen to the wind and know when bad weather was coming. But he never taught her with warmth. He was matter-of-fact practical, showing her once and expecting her to remember. When she made mistakes, he didn't get angry, but he didn't comfort her either. He just made her do it again until she got it right. Lily watched how he worked with the animals. With the cattle, he was patient and calm, moving slowly so he didn't startle them. With the barn cats, he'd leave food out but never tried to pet them or make them come to him. With the horses in the pasture, he kept his distance, only approaching when necessary. There were 3 horses on the property. 2 older ones that pulled the wagon when needed, steady and reliable. And then there was Thunder, a beautiful black stallion who stayed in his own separate pasture, always alone. Lily had noticed Thunder that first week, had been drawn to how magnificent he was, tall and powerful, with a coat that gleamed like oil when the sun hit it. But she'd also noticed how Jack never went near him, how Thunder paced his fence line restlessly, how sometimes at night she could hear him calling out, a sound of loneliness that echoed her own feelings. "Why doesn't Thunder live with the other horses?" she asked one evening while helping Jack bring in firewood. Jack's jaw tightened, that tiny tell that meant the question hit something tender. "He's not safe around others. Why not?" "He got spooked bad a while back. Rattlesnake got him in his pasture. Ever since then, he's been unpredictable, dangerous. Can't trust him not to hurt the other animals or himself." Lily thought about that, watching Thunder through the window. "Is that why he's alone?" "That's why. Is he ever going to get better?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. "Don't know. Sometimes scared things just stay scared. You can't force trust. It comes on its own terms or not at all." Something in the way he said it made Lily think he wasn't just talking about the horse. School was getting easier, though Lily still kept to herself. Her teacher, Mrs. Chen, was kind but didn't push her to participate more than necessary. The other kids had mostly given up trying to make friends with her. It was fine. It was safer this way. But there was one girl who didn't give up. Her name was Ruby, and she had red hair and braids and freckles across her nose. She sat behind Lily in class and kept trying to start conversations. "I like your drawing," Ruby would say when Lily sketched during free time. "Thanks," Lily would mumble, not turning around. "Want to sit with me at lunch?" "No, thank you." "My dad knows your Uncle Jack. They work together sometimes during branding season." Lily didn't respond to that one at all. But Ruby persisted in a gentle way that wasn't pushy, just present. She'd share her crayons without being asked. She'd save Lily a seat even though Lily never took it. She existed in Lily's space without demanding anything. And slowly, very slowly, Lily started to hate it less. At home, things continued in their careful pattern. Jack remained distant but fair. He made sure she had what she needed. He checked her homework without commenting on it. He nodded when she did her chores properly. He didn't hug her or ruffle her hair or say anything warm or affectionate. But he was consistent, and consistency was something Lily had never really had before. She started to relax, just slightly, into the routine. Started to believe that maybe this placement would last, at least for a while. Started to let her guard down just a tiny fraction. That's when she made the mistake. It was a Saturday morning, and Jack had asked her to feed the chickens while he worked on a broken tractor. Simple enough. She'd done it dozens of times by now. But that morning she was distracted, thinking about a book she'd been reading, and she forgot the most important rule: always latch the gate. She scattered the feed, collected the eggs, and went back to the house without securing the coop. She didn't realize her mistake until an hour later when she heard Jack yelling outside. Her stomach dropped. She ran to the window and saw chaos. The chickens were everywhere, scattered across the yard, some making a break for the fields. Jack was trying to herd them back, his face dark with frustration. And worse, much worse, she could see feathers near the tree line, evidence of a predator that had taken advantage of her mistake. Lily felt ice flood her veins. This was it. This was the moment he'd give up on her, just like everyone else. She'd messed up, cost him money and time, and now he'd sent her back. The familiar panic rose in her chest, making it hard to breathe. She thought about hiding, about running, about anything except facing him, but there was nowhere to go. This wasn't a city where you could disappear into crowds. This was open country, and she was 8 years old, and hiding would only make it worse. So she forced herself to go outside, her legs shaking, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Jack had managed to get most of the chickens back in the coop. He was latching the gate, his movements sharp with anger or frustration or both. When he heard her approach, he turned. His face was hard, his eyes cold. Lily braced herself for the yelling, for the lecture about responsibility and how she'd proven she couldn't be trusted. Maybe he'd even call Mrs. Patterson right now and demand she come get this useless kid who couldn't even remember to close a gate. But Jack didn't yell. He just looked at her for a long, terrible moment. Then he walked toward her, and Lily had to fight every instinct not to run. He stopped a few feet away and crouched down, making himself smaller, bringing his face closer to her level. The anger had drained from his expression, replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like understanding. "You scared?" he asked, his voice quiet. Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Tears were already building behind her eyes, and she hated herself for it. Of me or of what happened? Both, she whispered. Jack sighed, a deep sound that came from somewhere in his chest. He looked out toward the fields for a moment, then back at her. "I lost 2 chickens to a coyote. That's money. And it's food we won't have. It happened because you didn't latch the gate." Lily's tears spilled over. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to forget. I was thinking about other things and I just forgot, and I know that's not an excuse, and I'm sorry, and please don't send me away, and hey." Jack's voice cut through her spiraling panic. "Stop. Breathe." She tried, gasping in air, her whole body shaking. "I'm not sending you away," Jack said firmly. "Is that what you thought? That one mistake and you're gone?" Lily nodded miserably. Jack was quiet for a moment, something shifting in his expression. "Listen to me. Everyone makes mistakes. You made one today. It had consequences, and you need to understand that and do better. But it doesn't mean you failed at everything. It doesn't mean you're going back. But I cost you 2 chickens. I've lost more than that to foxes and hawks and my own carelessness over the years. It happens. You learn from it and you move on." Lily stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. Adults didn't say things like that. Adults got mad and disappointed and eventually gave up. Jack seemed to read her thoughts. "You know Thunder? That black horse out in the far pasture?" Lily nodded. "He got bit by a rattlesnake last summer. Got spooked so bad he nearly killed himself trying to get away. Ran right through a fence and tore himself up. Took months to heal. Ever since then he's been scared. Of everything. Can't be around the other horses without panicking. Can't be ridden. Can't even be approached without him thinking something's going to hurt him. Why are you telling me this? Because sometimes scared things just need someone to show them it's okay to trust again. That making mistakes or getting hurt doesn't mean you're broken forever." He paused. "Thunder's scared. You're scared. I get that. But you're both still here, and that counts for something." Lily's tears were flowing freely now, but they felt different. Not panic tears, but something else. Something she couldn't quite name. 3 weeks after the chicken incident, something changed. It was subtle at first. So subtle that Lily almost didn't notice. Jack started explaining things instead of just telling her to do them. When he asked her to help move hay bales from the barn to the feeding area, he showed her why they stored them in a particular way. "Keeps the bottom ones from getting moldy," he explained, stacking them with careful precision. "Moisture rises, so you always rotate stock. Use the older ones first." When she helped him check the fence lines, he pointed out the signs of wear to look for. "See how the wire's fraying here? That's from cattle rubbing against it. Another week and it'll snap. Better to fix it now than chase cattle all over the county later." Small things, but they added up. He was treating her less like a burden to be managed and more like someone who might actually be useful someday. Lily found herself paying closer attention, asking questions she wouldn't have dared to ask before. "Why do the cattle group together like that?" she asked one afternoon, watching the herd cluster in one corner of the pasture. "Weather's changing. They can sense it before we can. See those clouds?" He pointed to the horizon where dark clouds were building. "We'll have rain by tonight." He was right. That evening, rain came down in sheets, drumming on the roof and turning the dirt roads to mud. Lily sat by the window watching it, mesmerized by the intensity. She'd seen rain in the city, but not like this. Not so wild and unrestrained. "Never seen a real storm before?" Jack asked, coming to stand beside her with his coffee. "Not like this. Wait until winter. Snow comes down so thick you can't see the barn from the porch. We get snowed in sometimes for days." The thought should have scared her, but instead Lily felt a strange flutter of anticipation. Being snowed in meant staying, meant being here when winter came. That was months away still. But the fact that Jack talked about it like she'd definitely be here made that crack in the ice widen a little more. At school, Ruby had worn her down, not through persistence or pushiness, but through simple, steady kindness. One day at recess, Lily found herself sitting next to Ruby under their usual tree. And when Ruby started talking about her family's ranch and the new foal that had just been born, Lily actually listened. "Do you want to come see her sometime?" Ruby asked, her green eyes hopeful. "My mom says I can have friends over on weekends." The word friends hung in the air between them. Lily's instinct was to say no, to keep that wall firmly in place. But something made her hesitate. "I'd have to ask Jack," she said finally. Ruby's face lit up. "Really? You'd come?" "Maybe, if he says it's okay." That evening at supper, Lily worked up the courage to ask. "There's a girl at school, Ruby. She invited me to her ranch to see their new foal." Jack looked up from his plate, something unreadable crossing his face. "The Henderson girl?" "I don't know her last name. Red hair. Talks a lot?" Despite herself, Lily almost smiled. "Yeah." Jack was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. "Her dad's good people. Helped me out last year when I had that trouble with the south fence." He paused. "You want to go?" Lily shrugged, trying to seem like she didn't care either way. "I don't know, maybe. That mean yes?" She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "I'll call her folks. If they're good with it, I'll drive you over Saturday afternoon. But you do your morning chores first." "Okay." Something passed between them in that moment, something neither of them quite knew how to name. Jack had said yes. He'd supported her making a friend. He'd taken her tentative step toward connection and validated it instead of crushing it. Saturday came, and Lily was a bundle of nerves. She changed her clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a clean t-shirt. She brushed her hair until it shone, then worried it looked like she'd tried too hard, so she messed it up a little. When Jack called that it was time to go, she nearly chickened out entirely. The drive to the Henderson ranch took 20 minutes down winding roads. Jack was quiet, which was normal, but Lily caught him glancing at her a few times like he wanted to say something. "You don't have to stay if you don't want to," he said finally. "If it's too much or you want to leave, you tell them you need to call me and I'll come get you. No questions asked." "Okay. And Lily?" He waited until she looked at him. "It's okay to make friends. It's okay to let people in. I know that's hard after everything you've been through, but it's okay." She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and looked out the window, blinking back the sudden sting in her eyes. The Henderson ranch was smaller than Jack's, but well-maintained, with a bright red barn and white fences. Ruby burst out of the house before Jack even parked, her red braids flying behind her. "You came. Come on, you have to see Daisy. She's so cute. Wait until you see her." Ruby's parents came out too, friendly and welcoming. They invited Jack in for coffee, but he declined, tipping his hat and saying he had errands in town. He'd be back in 2 hours. Those 2 hours flew by. The foal Daisy was indeed adorable, all long legs and curious eyes. Ruby showed Lily around their property, introduced her to their barn cats, let her help groom one of their gentler horses. They had cookies and lemonade on the porch while Ruby chattered about school and her older brother and the county fair coming up in the fall. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Lily felt like a normal kid. Not a foster child, not a problem to be solved, just a girl hanging out with another girl, talking about normal things. When Jack returned, Mrs. Henderson invited them all for lemonade. Jack seemed uncomfortable with the social situation, but accepted, standing on the porch with his hat in his hands while Ruby's dad talked about cattle prices and weather patterns. "Lily's doing real good out at your place," Mr. Henderson said. "Ruby talks about her at school." Jack glanced at Lily, who was sitting on the porch steps with Ruby. "She's a good kid. Works hard. Good to see you taking someone in." "Jack, after everything," Mr. Henderson trailed off, realizing he'd stepped into sensitive territory. Jack's face closed off, that wall slamming back down. "We should get going. Got evening chores." The drive home was quiet, but it felt different than usual. Heavier somehow. Lily worked up her courage. Mr. Henderson mentioned something. About after everything. What did he mean? Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a long moment he didn't answer, and Lily thought she'd overstepped, pushed too far. Then quietly he spoke. "The woman in the photo. On the mantle. That was my wife, Helen. The little girl was our daughter, Katie. They died 7 years ago. Car accident on the highway. Black ice, driver in the other lane lost control." Lily's breath caught. She'd suspected something like that, but hearing it said out loud made it real. "Katie was about your age," Jack continued, his voice rough. 7 years old. Loved horses and drawing and collecting rocks from the creek. She was everything good in the world. After they died, I shut this place down. Sent everyone away. Kept only what I could manage myself. Couldn't stand the noise, the life, the reminders. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered. "For a long time I just existed. Got up, did the work, went to bed. That was all. When Mrs. Patterson called saying there was a kid who needed placement, a kid related to Helen's family, I almost said no. Thought about saying no every day until she actually dropped you off." Lily felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Do you wish you had said no?" Jack pulled the truck over to the side of the road and put it in park. He turned to face her, his blue eyes intense. "No, that first week maybe. I'm not good at this. I don't know how to talk to kids or make things fun or do any of the things parents are supposed to do. All I know is work and routine and keeping things from falling apart." "You've been good to me," Lily said quietly. "You haven't sent me back." That's a pretty low bar. It's more than most people clear. Something in Jack's face cracked, just slightly. "You remind me of her sometimes. Katie. The way you watch everything so carefully, trying to figure out how things work. The way you're brave even when you're scared. But you're not her, and I need to stop treating this place like a museum to the past." He took a deep breath. "What I'm trying to say, not very well, is that having you here has woken something up. This house has life in it again. Sound. Purpose beyond just keeping the ranch running. And that's good. Scary but good." Lily didn't know what to say. This was the most Jack had ever shared. The most vulnerable she'd ever seen him. She reached out slowly and put her small hand on his arm. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said. "For giving me a chance." Jack looked at her hand, then at her face, and for just a second his eyes grew wet. He blinked it away quickly, clearing his throat. "Come on. Those evening chores aren't going to do themselves." He put the truck back in gear and drove them home, but something had fundamentally shifted. The walls weren't gone, but they'd developed more cracks, more places where light could get through. That night, after chores and supper and homework, Lily went to bed feeling strange. Not quite happy, because she didn't trust happiness yet, but something close to it. Something that felt like maybe, possibly, she'd found a place where she could stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. She fell asleep thinking about Ruby and the foal, about Jack's words in the truck, about the photograph on the mantle and the family that had been lost. And somewhere in her dreams, she started to wonder if maybe the weeks that followed felt different. Not dramatically, not like everything suddenly became perfect, but in small, quiet ways that added up to something significant. Jack still woke her at 5:30 with a single knock on the door. They still did chores in mostly silence. They still ate meals without much conversation. But the quality of the silence had changed. It wasn't tense anymore, wasn't heavy with unspoken worry. It was just comfortable, like two people who were learning to exist in the same space without needing to fill every moment with words. One Saturday morning, after Lily had finished feeding the chickens and collected the eggs, Jack called her over to Thunder's pasture. The black horse stood at the far end, head high, watching them with wary eyes. "Time you learned about horses," Jack said, leaning against the fence. "Not riding yet, but understanding them. Can't work a ranch without knowing horses. Even Thunder? Especially Thunder. He's the challenge." Jack pulled an apple from his pocket. Horses are prey animals. That means their first instinct is always to run or fight when they're scared. Thunder's been stuck in that mode for over a year now. Every day I come out here and try to remind him that not everything's a threat. Lily watched as Jack climbed over the fence with slow, deliberate movements. Thunder's ears flicked back, his body tensing. Jack stopped, standing still, the apple in his outstretched hand. He didn't approach, didn't chase. He just waited. For 5 minutes, nothing happened, then 10. Lily's legs started to ache from standing, but Jack didn't move. He just stood there, patient as stone, waiting. Finally, Thunder took one step forward. Then another. His nostrils flared, scenting the air. Another step. Another. Until he was close enough to stretch his neck out and snatch the apple from Jack's hand before wheeling away to the safe distance again. Jack climbed back over the fence. That's progress. 2 months ago, he wouldn't have come within 20 feet of me. How long does it take? For what? For him to not be scared anymore. Jack considered the question, watching Thunder crunch the apple. Don't know if the scared ever completely goes away, but you can learn to trust that good things exist alongside the bad. You can learn that not every movement is a threat. Not every loud noise is danger. Takes time, though, and patience, and someone willing to show up every single day without giving up. Lily heard what he wasn't saying. They weren't just talking about the horse. Over the next few weeks, Jack started teaching her more. He showed her how to approach the gentler horses, Rosie and Duke, the 2 older ones who pulled the wagon. They were patient with her fumbling attempts to brush them, to check their hooves, to understand their body language. See how her ears flicked toward you? Jack said as Lily worked on Rosie. That means she's paying attention. She knows you're there. When both ears go back flat, that's when you need to watch out. But this is good. She's comfortable with you. Lily felt a swell of pride. Something was comfortable with her. Something trusted her. Jack also started including her in more decision-making. We need to move the cattle to the north pasture tomorrow, he'd say at supper. Grass is better there, and the south needs time to recover. You'll help me herd them. Not you might help, or if you want to help. Just the assumption that she would, that she was part of the team. The herding day was chaos. Lily had thought cattle would just peacefully walk where you wanted them to go. She was very wrong. They were stubborn, easily spooked, and seemed to take joy in going every direction except the right one. Jack on horseback managed them with practiced ease, but Lily on the ground felt useless and frustrated. Don't get mad at them, Jack called out. They're just being cows. Use the pressure and release method I showed you. Get them moving in the right general direction, then back off. They'll follow each other once a few start going the right way. It took hours, and by the end, Lily was covered in dust and sweat, and possibly some things she didn't want to identify. But the cattle were in the new pasture, and Jack actually looked pleased. Good work, he said, dismounting from Rosie. You didn't give up even when it got tough. That matters. Those small pieces of praise from Jack meant more than effusive compliments from anyone else. He didn't say things he didn't mean, so when he said she'd done well, she knew it was true. At school, her friendship with Ruby deepened. They sat together at lunch now, worked on projects together, passed notes during class when they should have been paying attention. Ruby invited her over regularly, and Jack always said yes, though Lily noticed he never quite seemed comfortable with the social aspects when he dropped her off or picked her up. One afternoon, Ruby asked the question Lily had been dreading. Why do you live with your uncle? Where are your parents? They were sitting by the creek on Ruby's property, shoes off, feet dangling in the cold water. Lily considered lying, making up something simple and painless. But Ruby had been nothing but kind to her, and somehow in this place with this person, the truth felt less heavy. My mom left when I was little. I don't remember her much. My dad was never around. My grandmother raised me, but she died when I was 6. I've been in foster care since then, 3 different homes before Jack. Ruby was quiet for a moment, processing. That sounds really hard. It was. Is Jack nice to you? Lily thought about how to answer that. He's not mean. He's just not used to kids. He doesn't talk much, doesn't do the warm, fuzzy stuff. But he keeps his word, and he hasn't given up on me yet. That's more than most people have done. My dad says Jack used to be different, before his wife and daughter died. He says Jack was friendly, would come to town events, would help anybody with anything. Now he keeps to himself. I know about them. Helen and Katie, he told me. He did? Ruby's eyes widened. My dad says Jack doesn't talk about them with anyone. Lily picked up a pebble and tossed it into the creek. I think we're both learning how to be around people again. Me because I've never really known how, him because he forgot. That night back at the ranch, Lily found Jack on the porch in his usual spot, coffee in hand, watching the sun set behind the mountains. She hesitated, then climbed the steps and sat down on the top one, close enough to be companionable but far enough to give him space. Ruby asked about my parents today, she said. Jack was quiet for a moment. What did you tell her? The truth. That they're not around, that my grandmother raised me until she died, that I've been in foster care. How'd she take it? She was nice about it. Didn't make a big deal out of it. That's good. Jack sipped his coffee. People will talk, you know. Small town like this, everybody knows everybody's business. They know you came from the city, know about the system. Some will be curious, some will be judgmental. Doesn't matter what they think. What matters is you know your worth. Do you think I have worth? The question came out before Lily could stop it, vulnerable and raw. Jack turned to look at her. Really look at her, his blue eyes serious. I think you've been dealt a bad hand and you're still standing. I think you work hard without complaining. I think you're trying to figure out how to trust people again, even though every instinct you have probably tells you not to. Yeah, kid, I think you have worth. Lily felt her eyes burn with tears, but they were the good kind. The kind that came from being seen, from being valued. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. For letting me stay. For teaching me things. For everything. Jack looked back at the mountains, but his weathered face had softened. You make it sound like I'm doing you some big favor. Truth is, this place needed life in it again. Needed a reason to be more than just a place where a lonely old rancher counted down his days. So maybe we're doing each other a favor. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from gold to pink to purple. The evening sounds of the ranch surrounded them. Cattle lowing in the distance, birds settling in for the night, the wind rustling through the grass. Inside, the phone rang. Jack groaned and got up to answer it. Lily stayed on the porch, pulling her knees up to her chest, feeling something warm unfold in her chest. It wasn't quite happiness, not yet. It was something more fragile than that, more tentative. Hope, maybe? Or the beginnings of belonging. When Jack came back out, he had a strange look on his face. That was Mrs. Patterson, your social worker. She's coming by next week for a check-in. See how things are going. Lily's stomach dropped. The old fear rose up fast and fierce. Mrs. Patterson meant the system, meant evaluation, meant the possibility of being moved again. Are you going to tell her to take me back? What? No, why would I do that? Because maybe you're tired of having me here. Maybe it's too much work. Maybe, Lily. Jack's voice cut through her spiral. I'm not sending you back. Mrs. Patterson does these checks for every placement. It's routine. She comes, asks some questions, makes sure you're safe and doing okay, and then she leaves. That's all. You promise? I promise. You're not going anywhere unless you want to go somewhere. Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Okay. Besides, Jack added something almost like humor in his voice. Who else is going to help me with morning chores? Those chickens aren't going to feed themselves. Despite her anxiety, Lily smiled. I guess you're stuck with me then. Guess I am. The week passed in its usual rhythm, but Lily couldn't quite shake the nervousness about Mrs. The county fair was like nothing Lily had ever experienced. The city had festivals, sure, but they were crowded and loud and anonymous. This was different. This was a whole community coming together. Everyone knowing everyone, generations of families with their traditions and connections. Jack parked the truck in a dusty field, being used as overflow parking. As they walked toward the entrance, Lily noticed people greeting Jack with waves and nods. Some looked surprised to see him there, others pleased. A few did double takes when they saw Lily with him. Jack, didn't think we'd see you here, called a weathered man in a cowboy hat. Pete, been a while. Jack's hand settled briefly on Lily's shoulder, a gesture that was becoming more natural. This is Lily, she's staying with me. Pete smiled warmly. Good to meet you, young lady. This old rancher treating you right? Lily nodded, suddenly shy with the attention. Well, if he gives you any trouble, you let me know. Been working his ranch off and on for 20 years. Got plenty of embarrassing stories. Pete winked at her. Don't give her ideas, Jack said. But there was something almost like amusement in his voice. Pete was the first of many. As they walked through the fair, Jack kept getting stopped. Some people he greeted, some he clearly just tolerated. But the pattern was the same. They'd notice Lily. Their faces would register surprise, then curiosity, then usually warmth. "Heard you took in your wife's kin," said one older woman at the baked goods tent. "That's real nice of you, Jack. Helen would be proud." Jack's face tightened slightly at the mention of his late wife, but he nodded. "Trying my best." They found Ruby and her family at the livestock barn. Ruby's heifer, a beautiful brown and white spotted creature named Buttercup, was groomed to perfection. Ruby was practically vibrating with excitement. "Lily, you came. Come see, she looks amazing, right? The judging's in an hour. I'm so nervous. What if she doesn't stand right? What if—" "Ruby, breathe." Her mother laughed, then smiled at Lily. "Good to see you, sweetheart." "Jack, glad you could make it out." Mr. Henderson shook Jack's hand. "Lily's been a good influence on our Ruby. Calms her down a bit." "Ruby's been good for Lily too," Jack said, and Lily felt a warm flush at the acknowledgement. The girls spent the afternoon together, wandering through the exhibits, petting the rabbits in the 4-H section, watching the pig races, eating cotton candy that turned their tongues blue. Ruby chattered endlessly, and Lily found she didn't mind. It was nice having someone who wanted to share everything with her. When Buttercup took second place in her category, Ruby was ecstatic. Lily cheered louder than anyone, her voice joining the Henderson family's celebrations, and for a moment, she felt like she belonged to something bigger than just herself. As evening fell and lights strung around the fairgrounds twinkled to life, Lily found Jack near the food trucks talking with a woman in veterinary scrubs. She had kind eyes behind her glasses and gray-streaked black hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Lily, this is Dr. Chen. She's the vet who takes care of our animals," Jack introduced her. "The one who treated Thunder when he got snake bit," Dr. Chen added, offering her hand. Lily shook it, surprised by how strong the woman's grip was. "Jack tells me you've been helping with the animals." "That's wonderful." "I mostly just feed the chickens and collect eggs," Lily said modestly. "That's important work. You know, I could always use an extra pair of hands when I come out for ranch calls. If Jack doesn't mind, maybe you could assist me sometimes. Learn about animal care." Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" Jack looked down at her. "You interested in that?" "Yes. I mean, if it's okay." "It's okay with me if Dr. Chen doesn't mind having a kid underfoot. I welcome it. Smart kids who care about animals make the best assistants." Dr. Chen pulled out a business card and handed it to Lily. "Next time I'm scheduled to visit Jack's ranch, I'll let him know you can help if you want." After Dr. Chen walked away, Lily clutched the card like it was treasure. "Thank you for saying yes," Jack shrugged. "You're good with the animals. Makes sense to learn more. Besides, Dr. Chen doesn't offer to teach just anybody. She must see something in you." They wandered through the fair as the sky darkened, the carnival rides lighting up in bright colors. Lily stopped in front of the Ferris wheel, watching it slowly rotate, lifting people up high above the fairgrounds where they could see everything. "Want to ride it?" Jack asked. "I've never been on one before." "Never." Jack looked surprised. "Well, can't have that. Come on." They waited in line, Jack looking decidedly uncomfortable surrounded by teenagers and young families. When their turn came, he wedged his large frame into the small seat, and Lily climbed in beside him. The safety bar came down, and suddenly they were lifting off the ground. Lily's stomach flipped. She grabbed the bar, her knuckles white. Jack's hand covered hers, steady and warm. "It's okay. I've got you. Just look at the view." As they rose higher, Lily forced herself to look out instead of down, and there it was. The whole fair spread below them like a painting. The lights, the people, the patchwork of activity and life. Beyond the fairgrounds, the town's lights twinkled. Beyond that, dark fields stretching toward darker mountains, and above it all a sky full of stars just beginning to emerge. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It is," Jack agreed. Helen loved the fair. Every year we'd come as a family. Katie always wanted to ride the Ferris wheel last to see everything lit up. His voice was soft, nostalgic rather than painful. "First time I've been back since. Does it hurt?" "Being here?" "A little, but it's a good hurt if that makes sense. Like remembering matters, even when it aches." They went around 3 more times before the ride ended. When they got off, Jack bought them both corn dogs that were probably terrible for them but tasted amazing. They ate while watching the local band play country music on a small stage. An older woman with white hair and a warm smile approached them. "Jack Thornton, as I live and breathe. I haven't seen you at one of these in years." Mrs. Kowalski, Jack greeted her standing. How are you? Can't complain. Who's this little one? She beamed at Lily. This is Lily. She's living with me now. Oh, how wonderful. A child in that big house again. You know, I live just down the road from Jack, she told Lily. If you ever need anything or just want to visit, you come by. I always have fresh cookies and stories about when Jack was young and foolish. I was never foolish, Jack protested mildly. You jumped into Miller's Creek fully clothed on a dare when you were 16. That's foolish. Despite himself, Jack almost smiled. That was a long time ago. Mrs. Kowalski patted his arm. You bring this sweet girl by for tea. Promise me. We will, Jack said. And Lily noticed he meant it. As they walked back to the truck at the end of the night, Lily's feet hurt and her stomach was too full of junk food and she couldn't stop smiling. Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for coming. Made it more fun than I expected. Did you really jump in the creek on a dare? Jack's lips twitched. I did a lot of dumb things as a kid. Turned out okay eventually. In the truck, Lily watched the fairgrounds disappear behind them. Everyone here seems really nice. Small communities are like that. They take care of their own. And you're one of them now. People will look out for you. How do you know? Because you're with me and I'm one of them. That's how it works. The next few weeks proved Jack right. Mrs. Kowalski called and invited Lily over for cookies, which turned into a weekly Saturday afternoon visit. The older woman taught her to bake, told stories about the area's history, and treated Lily like a beloved grandchild. Pete, Jack's ranch hand who worked part-time, started showing up more regularly. He was weathered and bow-legged from a lifetime on horses, with a constant stream of terrible jokes. Why don't cows have money? He'd ask Lily while they moved hay bales. Because farmers milk them dry. He'd laugh at his own joke while Lily groaned. But Pete also taught her practical things. How to rope properly, how to read weather signs in the sky, how to tell if a fence post was rotting beneath the surface. He was patient and kind, treating her mistakes as learning opportunities. Dr. Chen kept her promise. When she came for routine ranch visits, she'd let Lily shadow her. Lily learned to check an animal's temperature, to look for signs of illness or injury, to understand basic anatomy. She held instruments, took notes, asked endless questions that Dr. Chen answered seriously, never talking down to her. You have good instincts, Dr. Chen told her one day after they'd treated a cow with an infected hoof. You stay calm. You're gentle with the animals and you're not squeamish. Those are important qualities. At school, her circle expanded beyond just Ruby. There was Marcus, a quiet boy who also loved to read and who shared his books with her. There was Jasmine, who was funny and bold and included Lily in playground games. There was Tommy, who was terrible at math but great at art and who drew her a picture of a horse that she tacked up in her room. She was building something she'd never had before. Not just one friend, but a whole network of people who knew her, who included her, who seemed to actually like her. But the center of it all was still the ranch, and Jack, and the quiet life they were building together. One evening, Lily came downstairs to find Jack at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. His face was frustrated, his hair sticking up from where he'd run his hands through it repeatedly. What's wrong? She asked. Winter came to Montana like a slow-moving train, inevitable and powerful. The leaves turned gold and red, then fell. The morning frost lasted longer each day. The cattle grew their thick winter coats, and Lily celebrated her first Thanksgiving at the ranch. Mrs. Kowalski had insisted they come to her house for dinner, where half the county seemed to be gathered. Lily had never experienced anything like it, the warmth and noise and abundance of food. Jack had been stiff at first, uncomfortable with the crowd but gradually relaxed as the evening wore on. People asked Lily about school, about the ranch, treating her like she belonged there. You're good for him, Mrs. Kowalski had whispered to Lily while they were washing dishes. Haven't seen Jack smile this much in years. December brought the first real snow. Lily woke one morning to find the world transformed, everything covered in white as far as she could see. School was canceled due to the roads being impassable, and Jack taught her how to dress for cold weather work. Layers, he explained. Always layers. They spent the morning breaking ice in water troughs, making sure the animals had what they needed, checking that everyone had shelter. The work was harder in the cold, but there was something beautiful about it too. The way the snow crunched under her boots, The way her breath made clouds in the air, the absolute quiet that came with heavy snowfall. Inside, Jack taught her to make hot chocolate the right way, with real cocoa and milk heated on the stove, not the instant kind. They sat by the wood stove warming up, Jack reading his ranch magazine while Lily worked on a drawing she'd been making. It was peaceful, comfortable, the kind of moment she used to think only existed in movies. But as the days grew shorter and Christmas approached, Lily felt old anxieties creeping back. She'd been at the ranch for 6 months. 6 months was longer than she'd stayed anywhere since her grandmother died, and in her experience, nothing good lasted. Something always went wrong. Someone always left or sent her away. The trigger came in the form of an official-looking envelope that arrived in the mail. Lily saw it on the kitchen table and her stomach dropped. She recognized the letterhead. It was from Child Protective Services. Jack wasn't home yet, still out doing evening chores. Lily stared at the envelope, her mind spiraling. This was it. They were moving her again. She'd been too comfortable, had let herself hope too much, and now she was going to pay for it. She couldn't stay in the house. She grabbed her coat and headed outside, not sure where she was going, just knowing she needed to move. Her feet carried her to Thunder's pasture without conscious thought. The black horse stood in his shelter, protected from the cold wind. When he saw Lily approach the fence, his ears flicked forward with interest. Over the months, he'd grown more comfortable with her presence. She'd started helping Jack feed him, always moving slowly, never pushing. "They're going to send me away," she told Thunder, her voice cracking. "I knew it would happen. I'm stupid for thinking this could last." Thunder watched her, his dark eyes steady. "I don't want to go. I like it here. I like Jack, even though he's weird and doesn't talk much. I like my room and my school and my friends. I like the chickens, even though they're mean sometimes. I like everything about this stupid ranch." The tears came then, hot against her cold cheeks. She climbed onto the fence rail, not caring that she wasn't supposed to, and just cried. All the fear and hope and disappointment of the past 6 months poured out of her. Thunder moved closer, which he'd never done before. He approached the fence slowly, curiously, until he was close enough that Lily could see the white star on his forehead clearly. He stretched his neck over the fence and touched his nose to her arm, a gentle investigation. Lily froze. She'd seen Jack work with Thunder dozens of times, but the horse had never voluntarily approached her before. She slowly reached out her hand, and Thunder allowed her to touch his nose, his warm breath making clouds in the cold air. "You're scared too, aren't you?" she whispered. "But you're still here. Still trying, Lily?" She jumped at Jack's voice. He was standing a few yards away, must have come looking for her when he found the house empty. His face was concerned, his eyes on Thunder, making sure the horse wasn't agitated. "I saw the letter," Lily said, her voice small. "The one from CPS, you're sending me back, aren't you?" Jack's expression shifted from concerned to confused. "What? No, why would you think that?" "Because there's a letter from them. Because 6 months is the longest I've stayed anywhere. Because eventually everyone gives up on me, and I thought, maybe you'd be different, but maybe you're not, and I understand. I do, I'm difficult, and I have issues, and—" "Lily, stop." Jack walked closer, his movements slow and deliberate, like when he was working with spooked animals. "That letter isn't about sending you back. It's about making this permanent." Lily's breath caught. "What?" "I've been talking with a lawyer. About adoption. About making you legally my daughter. Not just a foster placement. That letter is probably paperwork related to that." The world seemed to tilt. "Adoption?" Jack reached the fence and leaned against it, giving her space but staying close. "I should have told you I was looking into it. Didn't want to get your hopes up in case it didn't work out. But yeah, I want to adopt you. If that's something you'd want." "Why?" The question came out as barely a whisper. Jack was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "When you first got here, I thought I was doing my duty. Taking in family because it was the right thing to do. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being a duty and started being mine, my kid. My responsibility in the good way, not the burden way." He looked out over the snow-covered pasture. "This place has been dead for 7 years. Just me going through motions, keeping things running because I didn't know what else to do. You brought it back to life, brought me back to life. I can't imagine this place without you anymore." Lily couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. "You don't have to answer right now," Jack continued. "It's a big decision, but I need you to know, this isn't temporary for me. This isn't me tolerating you until you age out of the system. This is me wanting you to be my daughter." Legally, permanently, for real. What if I mess up again? Lily managed to ask. What if I'm difficult or angry or I forget to latch gates or I... Then you mess up and we deal with it and move on. That's what families do. They stick together even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Thunder nickered softly, still standing close to Lily like he was offering his own opinion on the matter. You've been afraid, Jack said gently. I get that. I've been afraid too. Afraid of letting someone in again. Afraid of caring and losing. Afraid of screwing this up because I'm not good at the whole parent thing. But being afraid isn't a reason not to try. It's just a reason to be brave and try anyway. Lily looked at him, this giant of a man who'd taken in a scared, defensive little girl, and patiently, slowly helped her learn how to trust. I want to stay, she said, her voice stronger now. I want you to adopt me. I want this to be permanent. Something in Jack's face cracked open, emotion flooding through. His eyes got wet and he cleared his throat roughly. Yeah? Yeah. He opened his arms, hesitant, offering but not forcing. Lily climbed down from the fence and walked into his embrace. His arms wrapped around her, warm and solid and safe. She buried her face in his coat and cried. But these were different tears. Relief tears. Happy tears. Home tears. They stood there for a long time while snow started to fall again, soft and gentle, while thunder watched over them with those dark, knowing eyes, while the ranch settled into its evening routine around them. Finally, Jack pulled back and cleared his throat again. We should probably go inside, get warm, and open that letter so you can see I'm not lying about what it says. They walked back to the house together and Jack was right. The letter was from his lawyer, confirming that the initial paperwork for adoption had been filed. There would be more steps, more forms, a court date eventually, but it was real. It was happening. That night they sat at the kitchen table and Jack explained the process. It would take a few months. There would be more visits from Mrs. Patterson, interviews, background checks, but his lawyer was confident it would go through. There's one thing, though, Jack said carefully. Your last name. Legally, you're Lily Bennett. If the adoption goes through, you'd become Lily Thornton. But if you want to keep Bennett, to honor your grandmother, we can work that out. Could do both, hyphenated or as a middle name. Lily thought about her grandmother, about the woman who'd loved her and raised her for those precious few years. Could I be Lily Bennett Thornton? Keep both? Absolutely. I think that's perfect. Your grandmother was important to you. That shouldn't be erased. Over the next few weeks as they moved through the adoption process, things continued to shift. Jack started including my daughter when he introduced her to people, testing out the words. At first it made Lily's stomach flip nervously, but gradually it started to feel right. Natural. Ruby was ecstatic when Lily told her, You're really staying. Forever, this is the best news. Mrs. Kowalski cried happy tears and immediately started planning what she called a family celebration for after the adoption was finalized. Dr. Chen smiled warmly and said, I had a feeling this is where things were headed. You two are good for each other. Spring arrived the same way Lily had come to the ranch almost a year ago, slowly and with the promise of transformation. The snow melted, revealing green grass underneath. The creek swelled with runoff. Birds returned, filling the mornings with song. And on a bright April morning, exactly 1 year after her arrival, the adoption was finalized. The courthouse in town was small and simple. Judge Harrison's chambers were wood-paneled and filled with law books that looked like they'd been there for decades. Mrs. Patterson was there, smiling more genuinely than Lily had ever seen. Jack's lawyer, a kind woman named Ms. Rodriguez, was there with her briefcase full of carefully organized papers. And of course, there was Jack, wearing his nicest shirt and looking more nervous than Lily had seen him since that first day at the bus station. The proceeding itself was quick and straightforward. Judge Harrison asked Lily if she understood what adoption meant, if this was what she wanted. She answered yes clearly, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. He asked Jack if he understood the lifelong commitment he was making, if he was prepared to be responsible for this child until she reached adulthood and beyond. I am, Jack said firmly, more than ready. Judge Harrison smiled, signed the papers with a flourish, and just like that it was done. Lily Bennett was now legally, officially, permanently Lily Bennett Thornton. Jack's daughter, part of his family in every way that mattered. Congratulations, Judge Harrison said warmly. Young lady, you found yourself a good father. And Jack, you've been given a precious gift. I wish you both all the happiness in the world. Outside the courthouse, Mrs. Patterson hugged Lily tight. I'm so happy for you. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, even though I worried it might not. Thank you for not giving up on me, Lily said. For finding Jack. Thank you for being brave enough to try one more time. Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes. I'll close your case file now, but you know where to find me if you ever need anything. Jack shook her hand solemnly. I'll take good care of her. I know you will. As Mrs. Patterson drove away, Jack turned to Lily. So, how does it feel? Real, Lily said. Scary, good, all of it at once. Yeah, that sounds about right. He paused. There's something at the house. A surprise. People wanted to celebrate. Lily's eyes widened. What kind of surprise? The kind where half the county shows up uninvited and makes a whole big thing out of everything, Jack said. But there was affection in his voice. Mrs. Kowalski organized it. I tried to tell her we didn't need a party, but she said this was non-negotiable. They drove home together, the spring sunshine warm through the truck windows. When they turned down the long driveway to the ranch, Lily saw cars parked everywhere. Lots of cars. Her stomach fluttered with nervousness. On the porch hung a banner that read, Welcome home, Lily Thornton, even though she'd technically been home the whole time. The words made her throat tight. Inside and spilling onto the porch were what seemed like dozens of people. Ruby and her family, Dr. Chen, Pete, and several other ranch hands, Mrs. Kowalski and at least 10 of her friends. Teachers from school, neighbors from surrounding ranches, people Lily recognized from town, from the fair, from the fabric of this community she'd become part of. Surprise! They all shouted when Lily and Jack walked in. Ruby rushed forward and hugged Lily. This is amazing. You're really staying forever now. I really am, Lily said, and saying it out loud made it even more real. The afternoon was chaos in the best way. There was food, so much food. Casseroles and salads and pies and a massive chocolate cake with Congratulations Thornton family, written in frosting. There was laughter and music and stories being shared. People kept coming up to Lily, offering congratulations, telling her how happy they were for her. Mr. Henderson clapped Jack on the shoulder. Never thought I'd see the day you'd let this many people in your house again. Good on you, friend. Jack looked around at the crowded rooms, at the noise and life-filling spaces that had been silent for so long. Yeah, it's pretty good. Mrs. Kowalski pulled Lily aside at one point, her eyes misty. You know, I've known Jack since he was a boy. Known his whole family. When he lost Helen and Katie, I thought we'd lost him too. He just shut everyone out. But you brought him back. That's a gift, sweetheart. Never forget that. He brought me back too, Lily said. I was pretty shut down myself. Then you saved each other. That's the best kind of family. As the sun started to set, people began to leave, each one hugging Lily and Jack, promising to see them soon, telling them they were always welcome. Finally, it was just Jack, Lily, Ruby, and her parents, and Mrs. Kowalski cleaning up the last of the party debris. That was quite a day, Mr. Henderson said, stacking plates. How are you feeling, Lily? Happy, she said, surprising herself with how true it was. Really, really happy. After everyone left and the house was clean, Jack and Lily stood on the porch in their usual spots. The evening was cool but pleasant, with that spring smell of growing things and fresh earth. This morning you were just staying with me, Jack said quietly. Tonight you're my daughter. Legally, officially, permanently. Does it feel different? Lily asked. Jack thought about it. Yes and no. The papers make it legal, but the feeling was already there. You've been my kid for a while now in all the ways that actually matter. When did you know that you wanted it to be permanent? Remember that day with the chickens? When you forgot to latch the gate and you were so scared I'd send you back? Jack looked out at the darkening mountains. That's when I knew, because the idea of sending you away felt impossible. You'd already become part of this place, part of my life. Couldn't imagine it without you. I was so scared that day. I know. But you didn't run. You faced it. That's when I started thinking maybe we could do this. Really do this. Build something real together. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the first stars appear. In the distance, Lily could hear thunder moving around his pasture. The sound made her smile. I want to try something, she said suddenly. With thunder. I want to see if he'll let me in his pasture. Jack looked at her seriously. That's a big step. He's come a long way, but he's still unpredictable. I know, but I think he's ready. I think he trusts us now. After a moment, Jack nodded. Okay, but I'm right there with you. They walked to Thunder's pasture together, the evening cool and quiet around them. Thunder stood near his shelter, watching their approach with alert but not fearful eyes. Jack opened the gate slowly and they stepped inside. Thunder didn't run. He didn't panic. He stood his ground watching them with those intelligent dark eyes. Lily walked forward slowly, hand outstretched, the way Jack had taught her. Behind her she could feel Jack's presence, steady and protective, ready to step in if needed. Thunder took a step forward, then another. His nose stretched out, sniffing her hand, her sleeve, investigating this small human who'd been patient with him for so long. When Lily gently touched his neck, he didn't flinch. He stood still, allowing the contact, accepting the kindness. Good boy, Lily whispered. You're so brave. We both are. She stroked Thunder's neck, marveling at the warmth of him, the power contained in his muscled body, the trust it took for him to stand here and let her touch him. Behind her, Jack made a soft sound of approval. Look at that, he said quietly. He's been waiting for the right person to help him heal. I think he found her. They stayed with Thunder for a while, just being present, letting him get used to having them in his space without fear or force. When they finally left the pasture, closing the gate behind them, Thunder followed them to the fence, watching them go, no longer alone in his wariness. Back at the house, Lily noticed the photograph on the mantel had been joined by a new one. It was from the county fair, taken by Mrs. Henderson. Jack and Lily standing together in front of the Ferris wheel, both smiling slightly, looking comfortable in each other's presence. Two people who'd found each other against the odds. When did you put that up? Lily asked. This morning. Before we left for the courthouse. Figured it was time to add new memories alongside the old ones. Helen and Katie will always be part of this house's story, but you're part of it now too. Your story, our story. It matters just as much. Lily picked up the frame, studying the picture. She barely recognized herself in it. That girl looked happy, confident, like she knew where she belonged. It was such a change from the scared, defensive child who'd arrived a year ago. I'm going to make mistakes, she said, setting the frame down carefully. I'll probably mess up a lot. I might be difficult sometimes. I might push you away when things get hard because that's what I'm used to doing. I know, Jack said, and I'll mess up too. I'll be too strict sometimes, or too distant, or I'll say the wrong thing. I'm learning how to be a parent again, and I'm going to get it wrong plenty. But here's what I promise you. I won't give up. Not when it's hard. Not when you're struggling, not ever. You're stuck with me now, kid. For better or worse. For better or worse, Lily repeated, and it sounded like a vow. That night, lying in bed, Lily thought about the journey that had brought her here. The homes she'd lost, the people who'd given up, the fear that had colored every day of her life. She thought about that lonely little girl who'd been sent to a ranch as punishment, expecting nothing but more rejection and disappointment.